Alright, okay, good evening everyone. Welcome to the new week. Okay, so we'll get started, but before that, quick disclaimer. Of course, everything we're covering over here for today is solely for educational purposes, right? And of course, as we are talking about market outlook and opportunities, just be aware that yeah, solely again from my personal point of view, I can't factor in your risk tolerance, your understanding the market, etc. Okay, so just be aware of the risk involved. Okay, so with that said, for those of you who are first time joining, welcome. What we're gonna do is every week, okay, we'll kind of run through the market, share with you some of the things that I'm looking out for, some of the things that you might want to pay a little bit more attention. Then we'll have a very quick Q&A at the end of the session. Okay, so to start off the week, this week here is relatively, I would say, quiet in terms of event. Today, not much. A lot of banks are still having their holidays, so the market is essentially slow. But because we are transiting to the new month in April, so of course the first Friday of the month, usually we have the NFP. So this Friday here on the 5th, is where we're gonna have the NFP as usual, plus also the Canadian labor market data. Okay, so again, for those of you who are interested in trading the news, right? This Friday is obviously a very good opportunity to be looking at dollar related currencies as well as, of course, the Canadian side of things. Okay. To me, that's the only thing, right? And of course, if you are trading the dollar related currencies or the Canadian related currencies, um, we might be kind of experiencing a slower move throughout the week, building into Friday, because that's usually the case, right? The market will wait until a high impact news is being released before the activity and the volatility starts to kick in. Okay, so that's something to note in terms of the event side of things. Other than that, let's jump into the charts, talk about some of the things that I would like to highlight and share with you. Okay, so first thing here is the dollar index. I think going forward, right, my bias here for the dollar is going to be bullish for the week. Okay, but of course, I wouldn't be buying from where the market is at the moment, right? I think you don't want to be buying at the top. Okay, I'm bullish because of the pattern structure over here. We can see that the market has put in a three-way structure, and after that completion, you can see the market momentum to the upside seems fairly strong. So I'm bullish. I'm interested to look for buy opportunity for the dollar, but I would love to see the dollar index pull back a little bit first, correctively, maybe coming back, as deep as somewhere around 103.5. That will be a better area to start looking for the buy. Okay. So from my perspective, the dollar index is likely going to be, continuing its bullish momentum. If we can get some kind of set up to buy or wait for the corrective pullback, that will be an opportunity. Okay. So if you convert that, kind of like the inverse relationship here is the euro dollar. There might be a good opportunity where the euro dollar might drop further. But the chart right now on the euro dollar doesn't really give much clarity. Okay, we do have this three-wave completion and the market is coming down, but you know, um, again, we don't have much of a confirmation at the moment. We might see some reaction off the 123.6 extension, where the market may start to have some kind of reaction and a pullback. I would say I'm neutral for the week because I want to see how the market is going to react around this area first. Okay. If the reaction is sharp to the upside, right, kind of V-shaped bounce, then obviously I wouldn't be selling into the euro dollar, right? But if the reaction here is a bounce, but it's going to be a corrective bounce, okay, then of course moving forward, we'll be looking at the sell opportunity too. But right now, I think this week is more or less a waiting game. Also factoring in, we have the dollar news coming in on Friday, so that might be an opportunity where this may do really a V-shaped bounce, right? So for that reason itself, I'm just going to be neutral and patient for the euro dollar. Okay. Then in terms of the pound dollar here, we have a much clearer pattern structure. Okay, so obviously right now you can see what I've put in here is we're expecting a simple three-wave development. Okay, in terms of the pound dollar, right? So what we have is a momentum push. If we can get another corrective retracement up towards around 1.2680, that would be a decent opportunity to take this to the downside. Right? So for GBP USD, this week here I'm gonna be bearish bias, and I'll be looking out for sell opportunity if I'm given the opportunity to have that setup to get involved in it. Okay. If I zoom out a little bit on the pound dollar here, okay, we can also see from the larger perspective, from this low here, we may have completed potentially a 5-wave structure in yellow, and typically after a 5-wave structure, we can expect some kind of a pullback towards where wave 4 territory is, right, which give us a very nice confluence where the fib extension is right now. Okay, so that's the projection. So of course, again, we are bearish bias. If we can get a setup to get involved in the sell, then that would be a nice little trade for us this week. Okay, so that's on the pound side of things. Aussie dollar here, I'm also bearish. But of course, I would just like to see some kind of a confirmation where the market give us a little bit more of a corrective pullback. Okay, and I'll be looking at the sell here, right? But this sell here on Aussie dollar is a little bit shorter term perspective, because this might turn into just a big corrective structure, and from there the market may bounce back up, right? So the sell on Aussie dollar is going to be a little bit more of a shorter term. So obviously, if I have the pound dollar looking to sell, Aussie dollar looking to sell, I just need to factor in my risk exposure on the dollar as well. Okay, so that's the direction to focus. Dollar Canadian here, I'm just basically neutral. I would love to see how it's going to develop within this week itself. If the market is just going to continue to develop a corrective structure here, then next week we'll likely look for the sell. Okay, but this week here, very high chance it's just going to be a neutral and patient game, and just wait for the price to develop into a pattern that we can all recognize, right? But for now, nothing there. Okay, dollar yen here as well. Just going to be neutral for the week. We are basically testing a significant resistance. Okay, but we don't have the confirmation from the market that it's rejecting to the downside yet, right? It's basically just consolidating around the resistance right now. So I'm just going to be patient, wait for the market to either break out to the upside or down before coming back and make a decision, right? So nothing there. Gold here had a break to the upside, right? It managed to break this with momentum last week, but we only have a impulse move, right? So I'm just waiting right now and see if we can get a corrective move here. If we have, then obviously we'll be looking to buy. If not, just wait, okay? So I think gold here has nothing much probably that we can take opportunity on this week as well, right? So really, all this major pairs, a lot of them, we're just going to be patient. Maybe this week we'll wait it off, and then the opportunity will come to us next week, okay? Oil here as well, neutral, nothing much. So my suggestion is, just give it time, give the market sufficient time for it to prove to us what it wants the development to. Okay, now it's pretty common for commodities to be extended in its 5th wave, right? So you can see from this low here, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Potentially, if I'm going to put this here, this can be turning into an inner 5-wave structure as well, right? And again, as I mentioned, right, it's not uncommon, okay, for commodity pairs to be extended in its last wave up, right? So this may still be developing as a crawl overall, but of course we're just going to be patient and wait for some kind of confirmation, right? And the confirmation here I'm looking at is for price to make a first impulsive move and then wait for a correction. We'll be looking for a sell side from there on. Okay, I'm not interested to be buying at where the market is, simply because we're testing the top of the channel, right? There's no reason to be buying near the resistance. If I want to buy, I'll always wait for the retracement first before getting involved in the buy trade. Okay, so that's on crude oil. Then we have S&P. S&P, I'm overall bullish, right? So if you can get a corrective pullback, essentially it's a very simple trade opportunity to look for the buy. But wait for the corrective pullback. Okay, if the market just instantly come back, very, very shortly, then there's no reason to get involved in the buy. Okay, so just be patient, see how the market turns. Okay. The pound yen here is very, very similar to the pound dollar. Okay, so pound yen over here, we can see the structure is very clear cut. This looks corrective in nature, right? So if we can continue to get a little bit pushback up, that will be a sell opportunity. This is an impulse, so we are expecting one more drop. Okay, now if I were to zoom out a little bit, okay, we can also see that this may be a big corrective structure. Okay, And this simple move here may be a pullback, right? Even though it's a pullback, I think the opportunity to look for a sell, it's there. Okay, so that's something to focus on for the week as well, right? So this is something I'm also looking into. That's why it's tech. Then we have an Aussie yen, right? So Aussie yen is very much similar to the pound yen, obviously, because both of it has the yen in play, right? So again, because of risk exposure management, you either want to be focusing on this, or if let's say you're interested in both, then you need to perhaps reduce your position sizing a little bit to factor for the exposure on the yen side. Okay, but Aussie yen here, we're also looking at the sell, right? So we kind of have this three-wave structure completed. The market gave a first impulsive drop. If you can get a correction here, then we're looking at the sell side. Okay, so that's on the yen side of things. Pound Australia is a trade that I'm currently holding since last week. Okay, the bias here you can see is very clear, right? We're looking at the sell side of things. We are basically expecting a three-wave structure over here. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, right? And then this one here, internal 1, 2, 3. So we are looking at a trade with a potential target that can come back and retest the bottom of the structure before the move up, and that's the direction we're looking at, right? And very quickly walk you through here. You can see this is a trade that was triggered last week. Okay, very simple kind of order flow technique that I'm using to actually execute my trade. Okay, we managed to get tagged very nicely, nice decent reaction. So I shifted my stops to break even. Just see how far this can go, right? But of course, ideally by tomorrow, we want the market to start moving, and hopefully by Tuesday or Wednesday, we'll hit our target for this sell trade over here. Okay, so pound odd here, the direction is down. If you do not have any sell, then you may want to maybe pay attention and see if you can get another opportunity to get involved in it. Okay. Euro CAD here, I'm also bearish. This is something that I'll be starting to look out for. I'm just giving it maybe today and tomorrow to see if we can do a corrective pullback structure, right? Because last week we get that impulsive move. I just want to give it a bit of time to prove to us that it's not going to be a V-shaped reaction, right? So I'm just giving sufficient time for the market to show, yeah, it wants to do a correction. Okay, if it's gonna do a correction, then obviously we have a nice little sell opportunity, right? Some nice confluence, 50% previous structure here for a sell. Okay, Euro Canadian here, you may also want to factor in that we have the CAT labor market data coming in on Friday. Okay, so those are also very important data. So factor in a little bit of news element into it, right? Again, when there's a high impact news happening in later part of the week, usually at the earlier part of the week, the market is just going to consolidate a little bit. Okay, so that's on Euro Canadian. And then we have the crypto side of things, right? So we are progressing into April, and we're getting very, very close to the next crypto, Bitcoin halving. So do expect additional volatility coming in for Bitcoin, and of course in general crypto as well, right? So for me, statistically and historically, whenever there's a halving, prices tends to go up. Okay, but understand that it's not going to be 100% all the time, right? And it's not going to be like, oh, instantly goes up. Okay, it may pull back first, and then maybe it takes some time to eventually break new highs, and be bullish, right? So again, you need to be very disciplined and have a proper strategy or even trade plan to be trading it. Okay, it's not just about, oh, halving and therefore you just buy, right? Halving is one of the catalysts that may give you an opportunity to buy, but you still need to be disciplined and follow your trade plan, right? So for me right now, what I'm seeing here on Bitcoin chart does not have any buy setup for me. Okay, instead, it may seem to be doing a little bit of a double top at the moment. So for me, am I gonna be looking at the sell side? I won't be personally interested in selling it because of halving as a context. But if this were to come down and it forms something like this, I'll be interested to get involved in a buy somewhere at the bottom. Okay, so my macro fundamental perspective going for Bitcoin because of halving would be bullish, and I'm not interested to sell, but I'll still need to wait for a buy setup. Okay, hopefully that kind of makes sense. Right, so those are some of the things to note. Very quickly look at some of the major index over here. This is German DAX, really nothing there. Okay, this is the China A50. Seems like it's just taking a very long time for it to continue to develop, but overall here we're looking at this structure. Okay, not the nicest structure of all, right? Personally, I would not trade something like that. Okay, but I think this was an analysis that was done in the past. I think it's still valid. This is the Hong Kong HSI, right? So I think HSI is basically developing as what we have anticipated right now. So probably gonna expect a little bit more of a downside here and then look for the buy, right? Yeah, so not much of a changes development. So everything is still intact. I think short term, if this pull back a little bit more towards 16011, that will be an area to look for the buy. Okay. Yeah, so for me right now at the moment, there isn't much on the watch list. Okay, primarily I would say it's the pound, really, like pound dollar and pound yen. We're both looking at the sell. And then Euro CAD here as well. Okay, so we don't have a lot at the moment, but of course, as the week progresses, you know, some of the development might kick in. We may get a little bit more opportunities, but as of now, those are the things I'm looking at. Okay, very quickly, I see over here Sulanto asks about the CHF JPY, right? Okay, CHF JPY, probably clean up a little bit. Okay, yeah. So probably developing something like this. Yeah, I think that will be the clearest structure at the moment. Okay. So this may, okay, there are a couple of variations in terms of like how price would develop, right? But there's a good possibility if this is going to be corrective overall, then you can expect one more drop to retest the bottom of the channel. Okay, if this starts to continue, just do something like that. Okay, it's probably just also going to retest the bottom of the channel, but then that structure is a little bit different. Then you'll be looking for more of a buy instead of like selling this, right? If this is going to be developing, you don't want to be selling into the crawl. Okay, but if this is going to develop into something like this, then short term you can look to sell there. Okay, so that's my take. I think overall directional focus here is down, then up, right? So keep an eye around the area 166.20, right? That will complete that equal leg WXY. Right? So that's my take. Okay, US 30, I think right now, based on the current development here, this would be seen as a topish formation, right? The neckline would then be this. Okay, so I would say you don't want to be selling it, right? Because I think equities in the US overall were bullish for the year. So even this looks a little bit of a double top with the neckline. You probably don't want to sell the neckline, right? So what you may want to look out for is how the market is going to react around this zone. Okay, because this can easily just turn into, from an Elliott wave perspective, right? This can easily just turn into kind of an expanding flat structure for the nice move to the upside. So my bias on equities in the US is going to be bullish. Okay, so you may want to have that directional bias and look up for opportunities or setup to get involved in the buy, right? So in terms of expanding flat structure in Elliott wave, right? That's the fifth area to look out for, 123.61618. Of course, if I'm gonna put in some labeling, you know, that might turn into an expanding flat, and of course, as long as price stays above that, the bullish bias may be valid, right? Okay, so this is of course a little bit more of the, you need to visualize, you know, if the market were to develop something like that, then that will be a buy opportunity, right? Because we have some nice confluence here as well. Okay, so this is on Dow Jones. We are looking at NASDAQ. Overall, I think it's also bullish in bias, right? Okay, so we have this here. We'll take a little bit of a fit structure. Okay, probably want to wait for a more decent pullback, right? So I think this will be, to me, this will be wave 1, 2, and then if we can come back here a little bit lower, that will be a decent buy trade. Okay, so overall I'm bullish, right? In the US side, focus on the buy side and then just wait for the setup to come to you. Okay, SWI is Switzerland. Yeah, I'll be focusing on something like this. Right, we always want to be looking out for the 3-wave development, right? So ideally, price would probably need to start stalling there and then starts to come down. Okay, then we can start to look for that nice little buy opportunity down here, right? Yeah, it's also bullish on this. Probably just wait for a clear 3-wave to get involved in the buy side, right? But the direction here is quite clear cut. Will be bullish bias on this index as well, right? This is actually the Switzerland index. Okay, so I think overall, equities are things we're gonna be bullish bias, except for maybe the China market as well as the Hang Seng, right? I think those two probably not the clearest at the moment. But overall, global equities bullish. Okay. Aussie New Zealand and Aussie Canadian. Aussie New Zealand, I think one of the traders actually asked me earlier last week as well. This pattern here, you don't want to be buying it. Okay, anyway, it has already moved off quite a bit, right? Most of the time, the market would tend to do a pullback. So my take on that is, don't buy, but you don't want to be selling it now, right? Because there's no confirmation that it's reversing. But we expect the retracement, okay? So if I'm gonna put in a little bit of FIB guidance here, right? We always expect some kind of a pullback eventually, right? So if you are looking at counter trend trade, okay, what you can do is you wait for the first impulsive move first, right? Wait for this break and then a correction. Then you trade the sell side as the retracement is happening. Okay, but you always want to wait for the confirmation for the market, especially if you're looking at a reversal pattern. Okay, so that's my take. Focus on downside in the short term. Okay, Aussie Canadian here, we kind of came towards the targeted area. Yeah, so if you're interested in this pair, I think it's worth noting. My take here is this reaction doesn't seem to be a nice rejection, but it's still early because this can still form into a crawl. If that's going to be a crawl, it's still a buy side direction. Okay, so how do we know? Just give it time, right? Like today, we haven't really seen it yet. But as the market continues to develop, right, it needs to move up and down, right? So at some point in time, you will see, oh, do we have a clear crawl structure? So roughly, how does it look like? If I were to take, just some sample here, map it, put it a little bit smaller, something like that. All right. So if you see something like that, one of the opportunity you get involved in would be to utilize a breakout trade, and then your stop loss you can place just below, and then your target, depending on how much you want to go for, that's a valid potential trade setup, right? But you need to wait for this crawl to develop, because without the crawl, there's no setup. Okay. Pound Australia, I kind of mentioned just now, right? Pound Australia is a trade that I'm currently in. The direction here, we're looking at the sell side. Okay, this is the trade I'm currently in. I've already shift stops to break even, right? So if you're not in, you probably need to wait for your setup. You don't want to just jump in right now because, again, it might affect your risk to reward ratio. Okay, this trade I'm looking at right now for me, we are looking at about risk to reward 2.2. I'm just targeting the low there, right? But of course, do we have more downside? Yeah, okay. Because I'm targeting this low here, right? I'm targeting this low. I'm just being a little bit more conservative. I'm happy with the risk to reward ratio anyway if it hits that target. But for those of you who are interested, go for a little bit more. You can always look for extended target, at maybe 1.92, 1.9180. I think those areas are quite visible as well. Okay, so those are the things to note. Good. Now, this upcoming Friday, well, yeah. Okay, I kind of mentioned that this upcoming Friday we have the NFP, right? The high impact news for NFP and the Canadian side of things. I'm actually conducting a live trading session. Okay. Likely it will be hosted on this platform called Everything Trading, right? So for those of you who are familiar with it, you know this website, right? But for those of you who are fairly new, right, what you can do is you can go over to everythingtrading.com. Okay, it looks something like that. If you don't have an account, you can click sign up. It's free to sign up for your account. Okay, you just need to follow the process and then be able to register for free, and then you log in. Okay, once you log in, you'll be able to see, of course, the upcoming session over here. I think they haven't really posted up yet. But this Friday here, we'll be conducting the NFP live trade. Okay, let me bring that up again. Okay, so I'll be covering the technique and the approach that I use to trade high impact news, right? And of course, we have a combination of the Canadian and the US side, so we'll be looking at both. But this is something that if you're keen in news trading, in basically short-term trading, right? Do join us in this event so that you can actually, understand a little bit what are the approaches I use. And then you can use this same technique in some other high impact news as well. Okay. Yeah, so just want to put this out there for those of you interested. Okay, do take note of this upcoming Friday. We'll be having that session. Good. Cool. I think that's all from me for today over here. There's not really a lot of things that's moving in the market. March has been relatively slow for me. Just very quickly show you some of the journal that I have for March. Okay. So March has been really slow for me, right? I took a total of 12 trades. I managed to win 2. I lost 3. I break even 7. That's a lot. Okay. And then my net gain for March is basically less than 1%. Okay. Kind of like break even, right? I'll just call it a break even month. Okay. So it's really a very slow and grinding month for March. Okay. But if I take a look at my entire quarter, January is solid. Okay. Managed to take about double-digit returns. February is also not too bad, right? Close to 6% return. Yeah. So March is just slow, right? And we're just proceeding into April. Let's see how it goes, right? Hopefully he's gonna give us a little bit better, more opportunities, easier trade opportunities as well for the month of April. Okay, so good. That's all for me for today. So all the best for the week itself, and for those of you who are joining in, on Friday. Okay, we'll be seeing you guys again. Good. So that's all. All the best for the week, and we'll see you guys in the next session. Okay. Bye bye.